the name of the chap now, Henry, what was he called? Berryman. And I remember we went to, my solicitor fell out with the bank, so I was suggested I went to a new bank. I remember Amos Bridgman recommended the Midland Bank, so I went down to Exeter and saw the commercial manager called Berryman. And again, I said to this guy, I said, again, it was getting very slow. I could see me being on the street with nothing. And I said, oh, the only chap I know in the Midland Bank is a chap called Dennis Tregarthen. He said, Dennis Tregarthen? I said, yes. He said, I know Dennis Tregarthen. So I said to him, well, how do you know him? He said, well, I used to work in Truro and he was on the staff in Truro. And I said, yeah, well, he's my brother-in-law. Is he? Oh, such a super chap. Well, one thing led to another, because I got all the borrowing. And Stuart Berryman and this chap here, Mike, worked for the same bloke and knew him. And I must say, in the early 90s, anybody in business will know that bank rate went up to 15% as a base. And it was pretty tough times. And I must say, Stuart Berryman was very, very good to me. So it's not what you know, it's who you know. But they were good times, and so yeah, in, what time was it? We eventually decided to get out of teaching. I'd had enough, actual fact. It was a school for kids who were really behavioural problems. I felt that my wife, Barbara, died with cancer, and one thing led to another. I thought it was time to move on, and so I eventually moved out of education, and we finally sold Dennington and got into the building trade, and Henry and I sort of ran a small building company, and I went to live with Henry in High Bickington, and I remember going to the church just across the road from his house, and I remember sitting in the church there, and a couple of rather sort of posh ladies were sitting in front of us, and one turned and said, are you visitors? And I said, no, we just live across the road. I said, oh, that's interesting. She said, whereabouts? So I explained where we were living. And she said, oh, yes, I live very close by. I said, yes. I said, oh, there's a field behind our house, and I saw your daughter going across the field to bring the horse in. And she said, oh, that wasn't my daughter, that was me, she said. Well, she was called Betty, and she was lovely, and I got to know her quite well. Well, not as well as that, but I got to know her. I can remember even helping her to hoof the church once, actual fact. So they were very, very happy times. Now I'm losing my thread. And so finally, at that time, I eventually settled down with June Fordham, and we were together for 15 years and had a marvellous time. And then poor June died in '99, and so I used to play golf with a chap called I can't even think of his name now. He's a doctor, retired doctor, and I said. He was married, and his wife had died. He had been a nurse. And he got married again. And I said to him, "Yes." I said, "I'd like to get married again. So this living with my son. I see, I'm sort of cramping his style rather." I said, "So he said, well, I joined a very exclusive dating agency." I said, "Well, interesting." I said, "And how did it go?" He said, "Well, I lived in Bournemouth at the time. He was a doctor, and he was in Greece for a long time, and he was a radiographer, and he used to do tests on immigrants, Greeks going to Australia, and then he retired, and he came to live in Bournemouth. And I said, well, how do you get on with this? He said, well, I said, I mean, how many ladies do you see? And he said, well, I would come in with a telegraph, and they would be in the hotel foyer or somewhere with a rose or what have you. And I said, well, he said, oh, I saw about 26 or 28 ladies. I thought, gosh, over what period? He said, oh, over a year, 18 months. I said, well, so I joined Saga and went on a singles holiday. I thought that'd be a bit cheaper. And so I went with Saga on this. I went with Saga on this singles holiday. They were a pretty rough lot in our group, they really were. But Anne was with rather a lot of posh ladies, and they were playing bridge, and I played a bit of bridge, and I said, I said, I eventually got into their little group, and I had a game, and I remember, and the music started in the next room. I said, well, come on, let's have a dance, shall we? And they said, no, we're here to play bridge. So I eventually got Anne onto the dance floor eventually, and she said to me, you know, you're the most self-centered, egotistical I've ever met. And I said, well, look, all my friends tell me that, so that's nothing new. And we got on on fire. I was like, it was excellent, actual fact. And so one thing led to another, and she was living in Hove, and I don't know, we lived around trying to find somewhere to live, and it was rather nice because we eventually came and settled in Barnstable. And there we are. Well, I think I've spoken long enough now. My wife's pointing to the chair, so I think I'm going to. It's lovely to see you all. It really is. You know, you've made my day. I got quite excited when I woke up this morning, thinking all the lovely new friends, all my old friends I'm going to see. I said to my wife, it's like playing a game of rugby. I used to get very excited before a game. I'm sure it's very simple, but still. Well, there we are then. Well, my birthday, thank you for all the cards. My birthday, I'm not reading all that. My birthday actually is on the 26th, and Anna's very kindly taking me to Lundy Island. I don't know if she's going to leave me there. We're going to Lundy. We're going with the Catholic Church. I mean, I'm very well. I go to the Catholic Church with Anne. I also go to the Church of England. I get around a bit, and I also go to a lovely little chapel called Gun. And William is here, and a few others. And it's a lovely, lovely little service there, because after the service, you have wine and tidbits, and you feel that when you drive home, you've been to a cocktail party. It's most enjoyable. So, as I say, I'm going to, yes, don't worry, darling, I'm going to sit down now. So, as I say, and the other person, of course, who organises Gun Church is dear old Arnold, actual fact, who is a marvellous chap and does everything. But it's just so nice to see some old faces, you know. When I say old faces, it sounds terrible. I think of dear Bob and Pat, Stockholm, wherever they are. They were very, very kind to us when I was with June, and we used to have some lovely times up after Hobbs Back at Shackleford, Cross Farm, and then dear Gillian here, who lives in Somerset. We used to go and perch ourselves down there in our house, and she used to be so kind, and used to meet all her friends and so forth. And I've been to all their children's weddings and so forth, and it brings back so many happy memories when I see Nancy and Ivy May and all, you know, people in the past. I could go on all day, so I got to better curtail my little talk now, because I think I've come to the end. So I would like to just make just one toast, I think. And the toast will be to, I'm not an easy chap to live with, got a bit of an Irish temper. I can be a bit of a pain, to say the least. But dear Anne has been a marvellous partner, been a marvellous wife. So would you just like to, don't stand up, but would you like to just raise your glass? And the toast is to Anne. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. And now I shall hand you over to Ben, who will finish off the afternoon for us. Thank you, Ben.
Colin, man, and your family, ladies and gentlemen, this morning, it's a pleasure to be able to respond to the toast to Colin, because he offered me a fiver this morning. And I said, that's not enough. I've known Colin for an awful long time, actually. I'm trying to think where we first met, and I think it was at Chivener on an open day, and I met you there in the officers' mess. Yeah. And then from there it sort of went from bad to worse, because we then we met in the Braunton Diners. What are you doing there? It was a group of businessmen, professional businessmen, that formed this dining club in the parish of Braunton. The rules were that you had to be a professional person living within the parish. How the heck I got into it? Well, you wonder, because what used to happen, the station commander used to get the invitation to bring along 2 of his officers, and I got in there and they said, "Oh, good, we're looking for a secretary." And I became secretary of the Braunton Diners for an awful long time, 10 years. And then during that time, we formed with a group of friends here tonight a thing called pub night. It started off as a tennis girl. I think you'll find that Margaret Barraclough will tell you. And it became known as the pub night. And we would meet up in a pub, and we'd have a meal and a few pints and a chat, and then we decide where we're going to go next. We tried to get into it was always a bit of a giggle, to go to the Globe at Berry Harbour. Every time we went there, we couldn't find anywhere to park, so we ended up somewhere else. But they were fun evenings. But, you know, we all got a bit long in the tooth, and it takes an awful brave person to leave a lovely log fire to go out to a pub on a cold winter's night. But we did, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's just a short thing of how I knew Colin. I know that he plays a lot of bridge. Probably what you don't know, he's a bit of a terror on the croquet lawn. Oh. And I remember saying to you once, "Gosh, you know, that can't be very active." He said, "It's very active." I said, "Can you cheat?" "Oh, yes." So I said, "Well, how can you possibly cheat?" He said, "Well, you hammer some lady's ball way off into the woods." You know, that's the end of it. It was known as a terror of the croquet lawns. Now, a little advice for you. You've not quite made it. There are a few here who've beaten you to the 80 point. And in fact, in our little village there, for you, so those of you who come down, it's very rural down here. We live in a little village, Mark and I, just over the woods here. And it's very rural. In fact, the main holiday of the year for some of these families would be to go to Barnstable, market. And they enjoy it. And one little old lady there, and she was saying that, so we're going out to an 80th party, luncheon. Oh, she said, "My husband was 80, he said, last week. He's one of them oxogeraniums." Yeah? So you're now an oxogeranium. But now, I was going to say 3 things that can happen to you. The first thing that happens in old age is you lose your memory. Second, and the third, doesn't matter. If I made them, somebody would demand a story. I don't know really, many stories, as you all well know. But we had this little old lady, and she said to us in the pub there, they just moved down from a cottage, a tied cottage on the farms, into one of these modern little bungalows for them. And she was saying, her husband said, "Here," he said, "it's marvellous. We got electricity in the house. Actually got electricity. And we got a thing called a deep freezer." And I said to somebody the other day, "How long can he keep chickens in the deep freezer?" And somebody said, "Oh, 3 or 4 months." That's funny, he said. "I put 2 in there last night, buggers were dead this morning." And he said, you know, he said, "We've got an indoor toilet." It's unbelievable. He said, "You have to go out in the rain now with an umbrella, walk in the garden. Look, indoors, a toilet." She said, "Fantastic." She said, "A flush or goes?" He said, "And a toilet brush." She said, "Fantastic. Got a toilet brush." He said, "I'm still using it, but the missus has gone back on the paper." I think we better wind this up. Colin, you mentioned London. I used to go to London a lot. I think we were forced to as young officers. We had to, because we were paying for the privilege of being members of the Officers' Club, which we never went to. And if we did anyway, we were pushed in the back there, so that the senior officers could get the posh places. Somebody in. But I found that a lot of people drive the buses there. I went to try to get on one of the buses one day, and there was a young ethnic